Connecting. Okay, so you can hear it's being recorded. I see that a lot of people are joining the meeting, so we will wait one more second to make it possible for everybody to get into the session. It's still running. Still more participants are coming. Okay. I think people can still join, but I think we will start because it's now the time that we were going to start. Welcome to this webinar, all of you from all over the world, as part of the webinar series that are organized by our section Academic and Research Libraries from the IFLA. My name is Marga Koelen and I'm the Secretary of the Standing Committee Academic and Research Libraries. And as you know, the vision of IFLA is to have a strong and united library field, powering literate, informed and participative societies. And this is also strongly supported by our section. The Academic and Research Library section has members from all over the world, and it is always interesting to share experience about what is going on in academic and research libraries from different parts of the world, so from different views. We also cooperate on further developments in these libraries, and we promote and support the role of libraries as core institutions for research and education worldwide. It's a privilege for me to welcome you all to this very interesting webinar. Our topic today is really interesting. We are all affected by the COVID-19 and with us all our libraries. Some of us may be more severe than others, and it ranges from making sure students can study safe in the library to the financial sustainability of our libraries after COVID-19. For all of us, it made us think about our role and our services. So what did we learn from a pandemic like this one? During this conference, we will look at it from the positive side. New services were created and some examples will be shown during this webinar. We have 3 speakers today who will be introduced by Reggie Raju. But before we start, I'd like to thank all the organizers and facilitators of this webinar, especially Xin Li from Cornell University and Reggie Raju from Cape Town University and Lorraine Ericom from University of Texas. But I also want to thank, of course, all the others who have contributed to the organization of this webinar series, like there are our chair, Kulsin Grip, and our information coordinator, Jasri Mamtura. But also Reggie will probably mention many other names which I'm not even aware of. Please forgive me if I forget somebody. We will post the recordings and the slides on our ARL web pages on the IFLA website, and there you can also find more information on our section. We will have elections next year, so if you are interested in becoming an active member of this section, please watch our web pages where we will announce when and how the election procedure will start. And of course, we are also very active on Facebook. I wish you all a very informative 1.5 hours. And now I would like to give the digital floor to Reggie Raju. Thank you.
Thanks, Marga. Greetings to colleagues. As Marga indicated, I'm Reggie Raju, together with my colleague Xin Li and Director and Dr. Lorraine Hericom. We'll be facilitating this webinar. I would like to give you very briefly some context to the session. And it's going to be a very, very brief context, I must say. Academic libraries have been continuously reinventing and reimagining their services to remain relevant. However, with COVID-19 has presented libraries with the opportunity to fast-track this reinvention and reimagination processes, not to remain relevant, but to provide leadership in the support of the academy. COVID-19 has brought to the fore the innovative characteristics of academic libraries. Testimony to this are the presentations that will be shared today. The presentations will demonstrate the agility of academic libraries and their contribution to the academy. At a time when the gathering of field data is a major challenge, one needs to source alternatives to support studies. At the University of Cape Town, it is proposed that human science researchers exploit the capabilities of scoping, systematic, and rapid reviews to facilitate the continuation of their research. Kate from Cornell will share with us on evidence synthesis and systematic reviews, which has been a mainstay in the medical and health sciences discipline. And she will share with us how this is being expanded to support other disciplines. Daniel will talk to us about the expansion of a transcription service to meet the demands for recorded lectures. Tamsin and Glynis will share a service that support master's and PhD studies. As can be seen, the presenters will share experiences that demonstrate the agility of academic libraries and the proactive responses in the light of the challenges brought by COVID. As the title of the webinar suggests, these reinvented, reimagined services need to be shared. It has to be shared to contribute to the global advancement of academic librarianship. As alluded to, we have 3 presentations by 4 speakers. And the first speaker will be Kate Shezikopo. She is the health sciences and system and evidence synthesis librarian at Cornell University's Albert R. Main Library. As coordinator of the Cornell University Library Evidence Synthesis Service, Kate provides evidence synthesis methodology guidance and instruction across disciplines at Cornell and works with global initiatives to expand systematic review training for librarians and researchers. The second presentation will be by Glynis Johnson and Tamsin Suleiman. Glynis is currently the principal librarian at the University of Cape Town, looking after the faculties of Commerce and the Center for Higher Education Development. She previously held posts as Information Service Librarian in the Humanities Division and Information Service Librarian in the Knowledge Commons. Glynis holds a Bachelor of Social Science degree, honors in Social Anthropology, postgraduate diploma in Library Information Studies, and a master's in Library Information Studies, having achieved the latter cum laude. And all of these qualifications are from the University of Cape Town. And professional interests include research landscape analysis, lists knowledge, skills, competencies, and competency index for academic librarians, professional development and training, new trends in librarianship, especially looking at librarianship in Africa and the Global South. Tamsin is the Research and Innovation Librarian at the University of Cape Town. Prior to taking up her current position, she was a medical librarian for 6 years, specializing in systematic reviews. In her current position in research and innovation, she is involved in developing new services and rethinking current services at the University of Cape Town. Her professional interests include research landscape analysis, bibliometrics, systematic reviews, and open access publishing. And our last speaker is going to be Daniel Jacobs, who has served as the Captioning and Transcription Services Manager at the University of Texas at Austin since 2014. Prior to arriving at UT, he worked at traditional film and television broadcast post-production companies, and then at Netflix. Incorporated, helping ensure digital assets were in place to successfully launch a streaming service. He attended the University of California, San Diego, and received his degree in the Interdisciplinary Computing and Arts program. I would now hand over to Shin, who will share with you some of the housekeeping rules. Thank you very much. Shin?
Thank you, Reggie. Good morning, good day, and good evening, friends from around the world. I see we have 68 attendees right now. I'm just going to be very quick. And the privacy is very important to us. And I wanted to mention to you, any of our events, including this one, is being recorded. And this recording would include chat. And recording will be posted on our committee's website, and the link I will not only share on the screen, but also I will send in the chat. Your microphones have been muted, so we have better quality for each other's experience. And the questions and comments, we welcome you to engage with us. One of the disadvantage for a virtual meeting is we don't get to have the direct face-to-face in-person experience, but we welcome you to engage with us. I would like to ask all of you, please post your questions and comments in Q&A, and Lorraine, my colleague, will monitor the Q&A. When we can, we will answer either in text or unmute and ask the speakers to answer your questions. And this talk is GDPR compliant. I will share with you the link about the policy and also questions regarding the privacy. So for now, I'm just going to share the information very quickly on the screen so that you can see. And can you all see? So I will also post the link where the recording and our previous event recordings are in the chat for you. So with that, if our presenters are ready, I'm going to stop sharing and move over to Kate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheen. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today, and thank you to IFLA and to Sheen and Reggie for inviting me to talk with you all today. My name is Kate Gezi-Kopel. I am the Health Sciences and Evidence Synthesis Librarian at Albert R. Mann Library at Cornell University. And I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you today about our evidence synthesis service at Cornell University Library and some of the special projects and unique opportunities that have come up for us during the pandemic this year. And I'm also pleased to share some resources that anyone can use at their library if you are interested in engaging with evidence synthesis work. All of the web resources that I'll reference today are available at this link on the slide below my email address. And I'll start by acknowledging that Cornell University is located on the traditional homelands of the Cayuga Nation. They are members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, an alliance of 6 sovereign nations with a historic and contemporary presence on this land. The Confederacy precedes the establishment of Cornell University, New York State, and the United States of America. We acknowledge the painful history of Cayuga Nation dispossession and honor the ongoing connection of their people, past and present, to these lands and waters. And I'll also mention that I've used images on these slides of my colleagues and patrons and friends who I've worked with over the years on evidence synthesis work, mostly to show the consultative nature of this work, and also simply because I really miss everyone and miss seeing everyone's faces, and hope to share sort of the nature of that work through these images and what I so value about it. So let's get started. Since 2016, I have been the coordinator of the Cornell University Library Evidence Synthesis Service. We provide this service to researchers, students, faculty members, and staff at Cornell University. We have 6 librarians on our team. But before I tell you a little bit more about our, different aspects of our service, some of the challenges and opportunities we've faced this year, I wanted to contextualize sort of what we mean when we talk about evidence synthesis, and particularly what specifically we mean when we talk about systematic reviews. So when you see a published paper that has a systematic review in the title, what you're looking at is an incredibly focused, guidelines-based, evidence-based, unbiased, transparent, and comprehensive review of all published and unpublished literature on a really well-focused research question. And this method originated in clinical medicine to look at the effectiveness of interventions, health interventions for particular populations. So here we have an example of what's called a Cochrane review. Cochrane is an organization that brings together systematic reviews using incredibly rigorous standards on different subgroups of health sciences topics. So this review is looking at the effect of antioxidants for preventing and reducing muscle soreness after exercise. So the co-authors on this review wrote a comprehensive structured search strategy and searched multiple sources, including what's called gray literature. So anything that's not in the published literature but relevant to this question, to try and analyze those results of what's out there already to understand the effectiveness of this intervention. But not only are these reviews being applied to disciplines outside of medicine, but there are also multiple types of evidence synthesis methodologies. So as librarians, as we are collaborating on these projects, it's important for us to grow our own understanding and experience with these different methodologies to start to do that work of adapting and consulting with these research teams when they are trying to plan their evidence synthesis projects, particularly outside of medicine. So when we're talking about alternative methodologies to systematic reviews, some of the commonly used methods that we see are called scoping reviews or systematic maps. And as opposed to systematic reviews that look often at a single intervention and its effectiveness, scoping reviews and systematic maps are more concerned with characterizing or thematically mapping, often visually, gaps and trends. And they're very common in fields outside of medicine. So here we have two examples. One is a systematic map and the journal Environmental Evidence, looking at the effects of agricultural management on boreotemperate systems. The other is a scoping review looking at the range of incentives for adoption of sustainable agriculture practices and their outcomes. And I'll just point out that this review, this scoping review, is part of a collection of articles that just launched through a project called Series 2030 that brought librarians in to collaborate with a global team of researchers. And this scoping review includes two librarian co-authors, Jessica Page and Allison Kinningerry. So I will talk a little bit more about that project later on, but just an example right to begin our talk here to show that librarians often co-author on these works. So we're seeing reviews not just using the systematic review methodology, but also employing different methods in different disciplines. So all of these different types of methodologies are part of what is called evidence synthesis. And evidence synthesis is an umbrella term talking about the process, any process of bringing together information from a range of sources and disciplines. And the reason I highlighted this last piece here is that evidence syntheses are becoming increasingly important for policymakers and decision makers. So I want to highlight, especially now, the impact that these published reviews have the possibility of having. They're often directly informing practitioner work in different communities and across fields. So when we're talking about evidence syntheses, again, it's this umbrella term that encompasses all these different review types. So systematic reviews, maps, scoping reviews, and meta-analyses are the quantitative syntheses of the data that is often performed after a systematic review. at Cornell, when we receive a request for support with a meta-analysis, we often refer patrons to our statistical consulting unit. And this year, in 2020, we have really seen an uptick in requests for support with emerging methodologies for evidence synthesis. And it's given us the unique opportunity on our systematic review service team to do a lot of research into these methodologies and to look for guidelines and to think about how can we consult with these research teams to help them identify the best methodology fit for the project that they're working on, and to help them develop high quality evidence syntheses across disciplines. So living reviews are a method for performing sort of continuous reviews of the literature, and they're very applicable to emerging topics, particularly COVID-19. So at the beginning of this year, we got several requests from research teams here at Cornell wanting to find literature on particular topics related to COVID, and using a really structured protocol for often weekly updating their searches of the literature to have their results remain very up to date and present new information as it becomes available. So we've gotten to explore that methodology. Another commonly used method, especially for reviews that are commissioned by policymakers, are called rapid reviews. And that it employs an accelerated approach to the traditional systematic review methods that can sometimes take, anywhere from 9 months to 2 years if you're doing a traditional systematic review. So a rapid review takes those time-intensive methods and distills them, often cutting corners on certain steps of the method, and then being really explicit about what shortcuts were taken in the published manuscript. So it's accelerating the process without sacrificing quality. And finally, this year we've gotten numerous requests for help with literature reviews. And the reason I have this in quotations is this can mean a number of things, particularly as systematic review as a phrase becomes more commonly used. We see undergrads coming in, their professor has asked them to talk to a librarian about doing a systematic review. It turns out they only have 2 weeks to complete it. So we've really taken on this philosophy in our evidence synthesis service team, our group of librarians, that even if you're doing a literature review, a narrative review, a paragraph long review of 5 papers for the beginning of a dissertation, you can employ these rigorous methods, and you can draw from systematic review methods to create a structured, unbiased, and transparent approach to your literature review, no matter what form it's taking in its published version. So why are we doing this work? Why are we engaged with this work? And this is a photo of librarians from the Series 2030 project, who I had the pleasure of gathering with in 2019 in person. So as academic librarians, we have a skill set that's naturally suited to collaborate on evidence synthesis projects. We are trained as leaders, as teachers, as information managers, research collaborators, and more, the more engaged I become in this work, the more I start referring to myself as a methodologist. And I think we can all think about ourselves as methodologists, particularly as we are consulting with research teams who often need to inform policy by bringing together all of the published and unpublished work on a particular topic, and they need to be able to select the best approach, the best protocol for doing this and presenting high quality syntheses of the literature. So as we all begin to engage more with evidence synthesis work, I think it will benefit us to think of ourselves and really empower ourselves as we dive into these complex research problems as methodologists. So to tell you a little bit more about our service team, on the backdrop of a picture of Mann Library, where I used to go every day, now remotely, our evidence synthesis service team provides consults for researchers, faculty, students, staff in all departments at Cornell. Our team includes 6 librarians currently, and in our job descriptions, we have a range of 10 to 60% time commitment allotted for our evidence synthesis work. We provide 2 tiers of service to our community. So researchers are welcome to work with us on a consultancy basis where we provide feedback at all stages of their review. Sometimes that looks like someone coming in and saying, you know, I drafted a search strategy for my evidence synthesis. I want to search these 5 databases. Can you look that over for me? And sometimes that's the end of our interaction. Other times, as we work with a research team who has a laid out plan to perform an evidence synthesis, they have a timeline, the resources that they need to do so, and we develop a relationship with them as we work with them on their protocol, which is sort of the roadmap for preparing the project. We occasionally will co-author the manuscript with them. And on the librarian side, what that means is we will develop the complex search strategy, translate it for syntax across multiple databases and gray literature, perform the search, really serve as a project manager from start to finish in that role, advise on software use, and ultimately write the methods section of the resulting manuscript as co-author. So this is one of the most rewarding pieces of this work, and it results in a co-author publication. So our group was founded in 2016 in response to increased need for evidence synthesis support from our Division of Nutritional Sciences that hosts an annual workshop called the WHO Cochrane Cornell Institute for Systematic Reviews in Nutrition that brings in researchers in nutrition from developing countries every year to learn the Cochrane systematic review process. And as librarians, we've been embedded co-teachers, teaching faculty in this institute for over 5 years now. So as this group was becoming more engaged with systematic reviews, word sort of started to get out in the larger Cornell community, and we began seeing requests for evidence synthesis support across disciplines, not just from nutrition. So in 2016, our total patron interactions that were tracked were 91, and that has increased to over 300 patron interactions in 2019. That number has gone down a bit in 2020 due to cancellation of some of the annual in-person workshops that we've been engaged with. But I think we can safely say that we've seen a steady increase in requests for support with evidence synthesis projects across disciplines. At Cornell, we've worked with nutrition, sociology, economics. We see research teams performing this work coming from all disciplines. And as of today, we have 12 published evidence syntheses in various journals that include Cornell librarian co-authors. So a lot of the projects, that the 6 of us began collaborating on several years ago have come to fruition as published reviews. So I'm really proud of everyone on our team, and it's been a wonderful experience to get to see this service grow. So, this work does not come without challenges, especially for an emerging service like this. We don't necessarily have a roadmap. Some of the challenges we've encountered is, capacity of librarians that are on our team. We all wear a lot of hats as academic librarians, and as the service has become more popular on campus, we have seen increased requests for co-authorship, especially, and I think as disciplines that this method is new to understand that we can bring this expertise to the project, they are more commonly asking for co-authorship, and so we've had to sort of balance our capacity against many of the other responsibilities that we have as librarians. Systematic review, as I'm sure many of you are aware, has really become a buzzword in the past couple of years. So we've needed to become very sort of nimble in the service we provide, in that, we are the methodology experts. And so when somebody's coming to us asking for a systematic review, there are some clues that we've learned that can indicate to us, okay, if they need to complete this project in a couple of weeks, maybe it's something else. Maybe we can sort of adapt to what that need is. And not only are we adapting to timeline and methodology needs, but we're thinking constantly about what these sort of disciplinary landscapes are that are requesting these various reviews. Is there policymakers who are looking for quick evidence syntheses, and how can we adapt to those needs? So if you are thinking about engaging with evidence synthesis work at your library, I do not mean to dishearten you by going through some of these challenges. I can tell you that the opportunities have certainly outweighed the risk for our team on this backdrop of beautiful Cayuga Lake in Ithaca, New York. And particularly this year, I think we've had some really incredible opportunities in our group to engage on a deeper level with different types of research questions coming from all over campus and beyond that have been really impactful. So I'd like to give you a quick overview of some of those projects, just to give you a sense of what opportunities might be out there for you. So this summer, we were engaged in a project with Cornell University administration as they considered the safety risks of reactivating campus during COVID. And our team was put in touch with administration, and they presented to us sort of these 6 areas related to COVID-19 testing on campuses that they were hoping to, comb the literature for the best and most up-to-date evidence on these 6 sort of sub areas of reactivation for campus. So what we did is met as a team and came to the realization that these research questions really fit this template for creating protocols for evidence syntheses that we employ with all research teams that come to us for an initial consultation. So here's an example of one of those templates, and we put these together and made them openly available on Open Science Framework. So this question was interested in, they asked us to see what is the literature on how many contacts an average undergraduate student has per day, and who are they coming into contact with, and this was to prepare for complex contact tracing protocols that were going to be put into place. So my colleagues Erin Eldermeyer and Jim Morris-Noer put together this protocol in the same way that we would approach any evidence synthesis protocol, thinking about, okay, we need to find studies with that look at an undergraduate population, that discuss the number of contacts those undergraduates have per day, and selected databases that would have literature around that topic, and wrote complex search strategies to identify that literature, and did that really rapidly. So I think not only does this show the adaptability of our service over time, but also the agility of our team. Once we have worked on so many of these projects, you really start to see how this method can be adapted to different contexts, especially rapid requests for evidence synthesis sort of templates and protocols. Another really exciting opportunity that I had the pleasure of being involved with is a living review coming from our nutritional sciences department, a team of researchers who wanted to look at the possibility of transmission of COVID-19 through breastfeeding. So I joined this group as a co-author on this living review, and in doing so, worked with them to develop a protocol for a living review. We decided the frequency of searches. So every week I searched multiple databases, employing the same search strategy each week, and the number of results has gone up and up and up each week. But it's been an incredible opportunity to really dig into this living review method. There's a lot of guidance and standards for it, which I wasn't aware of until I was brought into this project. And this publication is a presentation of the initial results of the first 5 or 6 rounds of analysis that they did on the papers that were coming out on this topic. So I think this is the kind of project that, as the more you engage faculty members and ask questions about, what kind of literature reviews are you working on, that come up during this time, and is a real opportunity for librarians to showcase their expertise. Another incredibly exciting project that myself and a group of global librarians had the honor of being involved with is Series 2030, which is a global community of 77 researchers who put out 8 evidence syntheses published in a special collection in Nature in October. Each of these articles includes a librarian co-author, and these are just some images of a team meeting that we had last year. If this doesn't show the impact of librarian involvement in evidence syntheses, I don't know what does. It was an incredible opportunity to work with researchers and to put out syntheses that are directly informing how donors are going to explore their role in sustainable development goal number 2. So this is an incredible opportunity, and I encourage you all to explore those resources. We also received an IMLS grant this year to present systematic review and evidence synthesis training for librarians over the next several years. And we're doing that entirely remotely, and we'll share information about that going forward. We have these videos from a pilot training that we did for librarians this summer, and that's openly available. So I encourage you, if you want to learn more about how to start getting involved with evidence synthesis, to take a look at some of these videos. A couple of other resources, and these are all on the list of links that I shared, that I encourage you to explore if you'd like to get started with this work. We have a public library on Zotero of evidence synthesis methodology articles, examples for different disciplines. So this is a great place to start to do some background reading. We've put together an evidence synthesis protocol template that is a tool we use consistently in our initial consultations with researchers, to give them a roadmap for how they want to start planning their review. So anyone can access this template, and you can use it with researchers in consults to walk them through this process of getting started. There are a lot of free software tools to assist with the evidence synthesis process that are available. This is one of many article screening tools that's freely available called Rayan, and many other tools are available to start with this work. And finally, I encourage everyone to just be aware of a lot of the exciting machine learning and automation tools that are emerging to support this work. LitSearcher is one that we have explored recently, which is an R package that facilitates automation of search strategy development for reviews. So there's a lot of exciting work going on in automation and machine learning, which I think could be the future of this work. We also have an ACRL evidence synthesis group listserv, so I encourage you all to join that listserv. So I know I am running out of time here, so I just wanted to leave everyone with this quote that I think illustrates the impact of evidence synthesis work. So we're drowning in information while starving for wisdom. The world henceforth will be run by synthesizers, people able to put together the right information at the right time, think critically about it, and make important choices widely. I really believe that librarians play a huge role in this, and this is an incredible opportunity for us to put our expertise on the table and collaborate with really impactful research projects. So again, all the links from this presentation are available at the URL below, and I encourage you to keep in touch. We're really building a community of practice around this work, and I'm excited to hear what everyone is working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. I think we have 2 questions, and Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing Q&A at the end of all 3 presentations. Should I go ahead and ask a question now?
Yeah, because it's only 2, maybe we should just answer them.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
The first question is, Kate, Could you please elaborate on the statistical service in support of systematic reviews or meta-analysis? It wasn't clear if this was a service in the library or whether this was out on campus, but how does that support systematic reviews?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the service that I referred to is the Cornell Statistical Consulting Unit. So this is actually outside of the library. It's not a library service. So when researchers do come to us for support with statistical analysis, which is often a piece that comes at the end of a systematic review, we refer them out to this partner group that can work with them on that.
Thank you. There's one more. I have some also, but I'll hold over to Q&A session at the end. The last one I will ask for you is, how much of a subject background is needed and what does co-authorship look like?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. And I think this really ties into the idea of us as librarian evidence synthesis consultants as methodologists. So the 6 librarians on our team have all different subject backgrounds. We have those of us with, I have a health sciences library background. There are others who are biologists. We have a new librarian who joined our team who works in the labor library at Cornell. So when we approach these initial consultations, we're approaching it as experts of the methods. So we've focusing on that expertise has allowed us to be really, I think, agile in terms of working with different disciplinary areas. And we begin, I think, approaching those consultations with curiosity, and, open questions allows us to think about, what literature is being employed in the evidence synthesis and apply our expertise of the methods to be able to, be effective partners in this work.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
More questions have come in, but I am going to hold those for the Q&A session so that we can get to our next speakers.
I think, Lorraine, you're right. And sorry, I think in order to distribute the time more equitably for different questions to different speakers, and Glennis, Tamsin, and Daniel, if you don't mind, I'm just going to move through the presentation and then we keep all the Q&A to the end. So I'm going to move to Glennis and Tamsin, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamsin. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Glennis Johnson, and together with my colleague Tamsin Suleiman, we are leads for a new service called Research Landscape Analysis. This particular service aims to identify gaps in research areas, particularly for masters, PhD, and postdoctoral candidates, and researchers as well. Research Landscape Analysis was coined by Dr. Reggie Raju, who is our Director of Research and Learning at the University of Cape Town Libraries, as well as our former colleague at Stellenbosch University librarian and our current Elsevier business consultant, Lucius Kumbi. Through our research of research landscape analysis, we have discovered that very few institutions, such as the NIH and Purdue University, are practicing elements of research landscape analysis. Next slide, please, Tamsin. Thank you. So here's a quick overview of what we'd like to cover today. We're going to look at a definition of research landscape analysis. We'd also like to look at an introduction and the context to our study. And then we'll see where research landscape analysis fits into our research cycle. We'll compare our services, our current services, and the new service, research landscape analysis. And then the 3 pillars of this new service, and in particular the tools, Skyble and Scopus, and then we'll end off, ladies and gentlemen, with an example. Next slide, please, Tamsin. Thank you. So we've defined research landscape analysis as a critical interrogation of the world's published legacy and current research output for the identification of niche research clusters, gaps, or voids in the research areas and topics for further research. The identification through this interrogation process will deliver on possible sources of funding, experts in the field of study for possible co-supervision and consulting supervision, identification of topics of prominence, and possible collaboration or collaborative study. Next slide, please, Tamsin. Thank you. The National Development Plan 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the latest South African Green Paper for post-school education and training will be used as a framework for this particular study. So research landscape analysis was born out of the layered context that we find ourselves in nationally and locally in South Africa. Firstly, the NDP 2030 calls us to produce more than 100 doctoral graduates per million per year by 2030. That implies an increase of 1,420 in 2010 to well over 5,000 a year. That is an increase of over 300%. Secondly, Sustainable Goal Development 4, which is named Quality Education, calls us to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Thirdly, the latest South African Green Paper states that PhD numbers are far too low to meet the country's need for research and innovation. Lastly, and in our localized context, UCT has reported very little support for potential postgraduate students at the pre-registration stage and a duplication of topics issue that supervisors and co-supervisors are currently experiencing. So we believe that research landscape analysis will be able to address some of the concerns just mentioned. Thank you, Tamsin. So this is our research cycle, and at UCT Libraries, we have combined traditional library services such as the literature review, systematic review, and bibliometric services to develop research landscape analysis. In terms of the research cycle, research landscape analysis services are located in the pre-planning stage versus the literature review, which sits between the plan or conceptualization stage and the create or proposal stage. Systematic review is a methodology and it can be found in between plan and analyze. And then research impact and bibliometrics is a service that is offered once the research is disseminated. Next, please. Therefore, if we were to compare our traditional services with that of research landscape analysis, we will see that our current services such as literature review and systematic reviews are and use an already selected topic in order to collect content such as articles, books, book chapters, etc., using EBSCO hosts and scopers as an example as discovery tools. With our new service, research landscape analysis, we look for intelligence and trends within a particular research area. We use tools such as Skyval to analyze the landscape in order to find these niche areas of research, experts in the field, and topics of prominence. Next, please. We have three pillars in research landscape analysis, namely topic analysis, identification of funding opportunities, and identification of experts, and this is specific to a particular field of research. So in terms of topic analysis, we are able to identify the most highly cited articles and journals publishing these highly cited articles, as well as seminal works. We are able to identify experts who are the most highly cited in the field, as well as those who are most productive in terms of the number of publications. We are also able to identify leading authors, leading institutions, collaboration, and collaborative studies. We can also identify emerging researchers and institutions in specific research areas. By looking at the results at an article level, we are able to see funding institutions or agencies, as well as topics of prominence. I'm now going to hand over to Tamsin to take us through the rest. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Glynis. The tool that we are currently using is SciVal. The foundation of SciVal is Scopus, which covers more than 22,800 journals, which are carefully selected to represent scholarly publications across the world. We have chosen the example of colorectal cancer and genetics to demonstrate what research landscape analysis can do in practice. So we have done the search in SciVal. What we're currently looking at is the overview module. In the overview module, we are able to view activity within a specific research area at UCT, in South Africa, and worldwide, in terms of scholarly output, most cited publications, most active authors, most active institutions which contribute or collaborate with us in terms of the research area. We are also able to drill down to article level, where one is able to view topics of prominence and funding agencies. Here we can see the top 5 publications worldwide by citation count. We can also identify the top 5 publications at the institution, within the country, and across the world. This could help us identify seminal works in the field and find core publications. Here we can see the top authors at UCT and worldwide, for example. This can be used both as a benchmarking tool and to identify experts in the field at your institution and across the world. This is helpful if you're looking for experts to possibly collaborate with or contribute to your papers, for possible co-supervision, and to know whose work to follow in the field. These are the current contributing institutions across the world, and this information could help us to partner with local institutions and to collaborate with on future projects. All collaborating institutions are contributing institutions, but not all contributing institutions collaborate. So this identifies opportunities to possibly collaborate with other institutions on this topic. SciVal also now identifies institutions that the University of Cape Town are not yet collaborating with. This identifies possible future collaboration with an interest in this research, in this particular research area. So as mentioned, Scopus allows us to drill down to the article level, where we are able to see more granular details about the article. From this view, we can also see the SciVal topics of prominence. Topics of prominence are an indicator of momentum of a particular field. So the higher the prominence, the more momentum it has. We can see funding details for the specific piece of research as well. Scopus also allows us to see who the top funders are in this research area. These are the top funders for genetics and colorectal cancer. This is an indicator of the order of the number of projects in Scopus which they have funded. So this is just a recap of the 3 pillars of research landscape analysis. And I will now demonstrate how it will work in practice. Within topic analysis, we have trending topics or topics of prominence. And as mentioned earlier, it refers to the momentum of a particular field. So the higher the prominence, the more momentum it has. However, certain topics will not have a topic of prominence, either because it is a new research area or because it is highly specialized and still needs to gain momentum. If we look at the example, the topic of prominence is clonal evolution, genetic heterogeneity, and somatic mutation. This falls within the 99th percentile rating within Scopus. This means that this is a fast-growing topic. Here are also examples of core publications and the most active authors in terms of the number of publications. In terms of funding opportunities, we can see the article targeting c-KIT receptor in neuroblastomas, etc., has been funded by the Ministry of Human Resource Development. In another example, the funding agencies are the National Research Foundation and the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. For the identification of experts, we can look at this in terms of individuals or institutions. For the identification of a possible collaborators, we had a look at a number of articles to find an expert with the correct credentials to supervise, co-supervise, or collaborate with, depending on your needs. We looked at the article, No Evidence of Genetic Anticipation in a Large Family with Lynch Syndrome. From this paper, we identified Douglas Stupart, who is an associate professor of surgery at Deakin University. We tracked him via Google Scholar and LinkedIn to verify his credentials, as well as other research he has been involved with. In terms of institutions, we found contributing as well as collaborating institutions. Locally, we identified the South African Medical Research Council, and internationally, Harvard University and Deakin University. I'll now hand back to Glynis to conclude.
Thank you, Tamsin. So some concluding remarks, colleagues. So this particular service relies heavily on Elsevier products of Scopus and Skyville, simply because Skyville is an analytical tool and we are subscribed to the full package. We are investing our time and efforts into further investigation into other databases and tools, such as Dimensions, for example. During our research, we found that Skyville is well suited for the sciences and the health sciences. Of course, there are topics that are multi, trans, and interdisciplinary, for example, health sciences and social anthropology, or engineering and the built environment combined with public policy and political sciences. We acknowledge the great strides taken in terms of the inclusion of the social sciences, humanities, arts, and commerce research. And we do envision that this service of ours will filter into these faculties mentioned. And we do believe, colleagues, that research landscape analysis will increase postgraduate participation in research degrees and reduce the number of duplicated topics. Next slide, please, Tamsin. So we'd like to thank IFLA for giving us the opportunity to share our new service, and to all our colleagues here today as well. And our contact details are on the next two slides as well. Thank you, Shin, very much. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Glynis and Tamsin. Wonderful presentation. So I'm just going to move directly to Daniel and do the Q&A session later. Thank you. Daniel, over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. Get my slides started here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. My name is Daniel Jacobs, and I'm the Captioning Service Manager at the University of Texas. And this morning, I'll be talking about an automated captioning tool that we've developed. And I will get to that for sure, but before that, I'd like to briefly just talk about a little bit of a history about the service and what we do at the University of Texas for closed captioning of videos and transcription of audio material. So 6 years ago, the captioning service was created by order of the President's office. And the main goal was to ensure that statutory requirements related to video captioning and for persons with deaf or hard of hearing disabilities were met. It's a very important goal. Prior to the service's creation, colleges and departments were finding their own individual solutions and with varying degrees of success. The charge for the service was to create an enterprise level approach that could be more efficient, cost effective, and can expand as the technology and needs increase. Prior to this point, I imagined concerned faculty and staff members walking around campus singing a song from The Sound of Music, but with a slight substitution for the term there. So how do you solve a problem like captioning? And it's a complex issue. The actual process itself of creating video captions or transcription is time consuming. It takes a lot of knowledge about the actual subject material and obviously some technical skills to type out what's being said and to make it as accurate as possible, and just to do it in an efficient way. As well as at an institution such as University of Texas, which is very large, there are quite a few different systems and tools in place. And so you have to sort of keep up with the technology demands and complications that come along with the different systems infrastructure. So quick background on the sort of the funding and the partnership on campus. We serve the entire campus. The service is available to all colleges, departments, faculty, students, staff. The funding comes from our diversity and community engagement group, and we have a tight partnership with the libraries group. Funding comes from DDCE, while the libraries provide administrative support, HR support, and IT support, as well as our physical office space. So it's a somewhat unique partnership. In my opinion, I think the main reason for that was that the libraries represent a resource, an institutional resource that's equally available to the entire campus. So there's no perceived favoritism. We can work with anyone independently and provide the same level of service. More recently, we've been able to be part of critical library conversations related to audiovisual material, whether it's the streaming collection, video collection, or even the digital asset management system, which is being developed currently. And so we can have conversations at the ground level of those conversations and make sure that captioning and transcripts are part of the foundational groundwork there. And even more recently, we've been able to partner with the libraries in providing remote captioning projects for some full-time staff to work on and a large group of student hourly staff from the libraries so that they can sort of have projects to contribute to while some of the in-person library responsibilities weren't available. So I'm going to step back again to 2014, 2019. This is a picture of a busy thoroughfare on campus called Speedway. And as you can see, there are tons of students walking in. This is a typical scene was a typical scene on any given day. And similarly, this is a snapshot of a chart of our metrics. So the chart going left to right is, sort of starts in 2014, ends in 2019. And the values represent the total minutes of captioning or transcription that we have done over the years. And it's it's pretty slow, steady incremental growth year over year. And then, jump to early this year and campus closure, which happened around mid-March of this year, obviously affected the actual campus, but also in turn, as many of the resources that were course materials and course delivery methods that were done in person switched to online, the demand for accessible video and to be in compliance with the required statutory requirements, obviously things shot up, as you can see at the far right there. The number, the high number on the right, that's 45,000. That represents, or that value is for September of this year. There was a bit of sort of preparing for materials which are sort of the difference being synchronous versus asynchronous video, synchronous being like this webinar where we're streaming live, you know, captioning for that is handled by a different group. It's a different sort of style of captioning. Obviously it has to be you know, live and you have to keep up. And then there's the pre-recorded asynchronous material, which is what a lot of our class materials are. But it took some time for faculty to be able to sort of find the right balance between synchronous and asynchronous, and sort of learn the systems and the protocols and procedures to create pre-recorded material. They did that pretty quickly. So, you know, after closure in March or April, you know, there was a dip as things went more synchronous, and then it shot up quite a bit as the recordings started to flow in. That's my dog. Okay, so that's a bit of background. So the reason I wanted to, you know, we're here this morning is to talk about a new tool that we're developing and are developing. Actually, as early as 2018, I was working on this tool as automated or machine generated captions or transcriptions. You know, it's not a new technology, but it does get better. It has been getting better year over year. And I saw it as a way that we could sort of have a hybrid method where we would work with an automated draft and have our student workers or our staff members make corrections and review it to get it up to the same sort of quality level that you get when you hand transcribe something. So I was in 2018, sort of slowly was working on it, had a proof of concept, and after COVID campus closure, we accelerated that process and saw that it could present a lot of value as our volume was increasing dramatically. So this is just some basic information about what automated transcription and captioning is. It's, you know, kind of, there's different terms for it. Speech to text is sort of like the basic sort of technology that's being used, or automated speech recognition, similar to OCR, which is optical character recognition. If you're familiar with that, you know, this is just takes audio information, speech, and translates it to text. Yeah, and the processing time is much quicker than if you hand transcribe something. To give a sense of what the time, I think we did an average, and about 10 minutes of audio usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to create video captions. So you can imagine, you know, hours and hours of lecture material, that the time it takes to create captions for that is just, it's a pretty significant effort. And so if you can process, you know, if you can dial down the processing time, and then at the tail end, the review process is quicker, then you can get more efficient. And there's pretty cool features too. Each of the words is given a timestamp and also an accuracy confidence value. So you can sort of use those to hone in on the right spots in the text where there might be issues. This is the tech stack, as they say. So these are some of the tools that are used to create the actual web application. And I will give a demo of the web application later, but Django is just as a web framework. Box is a file sharing tool that's used, enterprise level tool that's used on campus. And so what happens is folks can upload video or audio through Box, and that's handled through the web application. And then Amazon Web Services, which is what AWS stands for, is the actual processing engine that does the speech to text. And so it's sort of a feedback loop. You know, you upload the file, it gets processed by Amazon. That resulting transcript, caption, those text files are shuttled back into the web application, and you can view it and download it from there. Okay, so we're gonna, this beware is mainly for myself, you know, you never know how these live demos can go, but I have some backup slides if they don't go, if it doesn't go well. So this is, I'm already logged in, and this is what a typical user would see. Obviously, I have some previously submitted jobs here, files, but if we were to go in, and there is a login requirement. Right now, it's limited to folks that are part of the university, have a sort of enterprise level identification, digital ID. And so, but you know, we're currently offering it for free. So as long as you're part of the university, you can use it. And this is the button where you go to create a job. Excuse me. You just give it some basic information. We'll just, yeah, do this. And currently, we actually do support English and Spanish, meaning the source language of the video or audio speech is in one of those languages, and the transcription will transcribe it, this transcription service will transcribe it into the same language. So that's that. And we also have some different options if you want the system to identify who is speaking. So if you had, say, a panel discussion with, you know, multiple speakers, it will do its best to identify when a new person is speaking and sort of flag that. It just does like speaker 1, 2, 3, etc. But if you tell it how many speakers are present in the file, it's a little bit more accurate with that. So I'm going to turn this off for this particular test because it's just one person talking. So then we can just drop in a file. This is an MP4 1-minute test file of one of our sociology professors giving a short segment of a sample lecture. So drop it in there, and pretty quick upload. This is a relatively small file. It can handle larger files if needed. And from this point on, it's all just automated. It provides a little page that gives you some basic information about the file, and sort of goes and is doing the stuff behind the scenes, uploading to Amazon and doing the processing. For a short file like this is a minute long. The processing time should be around that, 1 minute. It gets quicker the longer the file is, sort of relative to the file length. So, 20-minute file would take probably 3 to 5 minutes. An hour-long file maybe takes 10 minutes max. So instead of waiting around, I went ahead and did this file earlier. And this is the actual transcript text is available down here. And you can download it as in these various formats. Word doc or plain text would be a plain transcript, so just text. SRT and VTT are caption, video caption files that actually have, they're formatted a little differently, and they have time and information present. So I'm not sure if y'all can hear. So this is the output. So this is pretty accurate, and you might be saying, like, why even, sort of do quality control on it? It looks really good. This is sort of a best case scenario in terms of the source material. It's one person speaking. He's a clear speaker. This is actually produced in one of the few studio professional sort of grade recording studios that are on campus. And so the quality is very high. He's got a microphone on his lapel. So the audio is just, pristine. So that's kind of the best case scenario. As you get into different types of content, the quality level can vary quite a bit. So I'm gonna go back to my slides. And talk a little bit more about sort of what we are looking at for the future. Obviously, we have English and Spanish, which are probably the most common languages that you know, the folks that are on campus that use the service have requested. It's not too difficult to, as long as it's offered by the speech-to-text engine, to turn on other languages. So we can do that. We've had some requests for French. And obviously, if the system supports it, it can, you know, we can enable that. A more complicated workflow, one that we're very interested in, is actual translation, meaning that, you know, a source language, you translate from one source language to another, or vice versa. So that would be something that we do get many requests for, especially for English-Spanish translation services. So this would be a really great service to provide. It's more involved. You know, there's sort of proof of concept workflows out there where you use, you know, you generate the text is then translated, and then you sort of two-step it that way. And the main sort of big benefit of using a cloud-based tool like Amazon Web Services is that it does leverage, you know, sort of learning capabilities, artificial intelligence, where you can feed it corrected data. So say you give it 5 minutes of video, you feed that transcript, you make corrections to that transcript to make sure it's accurate, feed that back to the system, and the system, in theory, should learn from that corrected transcript and sort of start modeling different speaker profiles. So you could do that, for example, for a professor at the beginning of the semester, and in theory, get more accurate transcripts throughout the semester for that particular speaker. There's also different content categories like medical terminology, legal terminology, and hopefully they will continue to enhance that for, you know, STEM, science, technology, specific terminology, which we have quite a bit of content for those types of subjects. And then to leverage the actual confidence values would be really helpful. So for example, you can sort of highlight words or sections that have lower confidences to sort of direct the reviewer or whoever's looking at the transcript to those specific points as good places to start looking for errors. And one other thing I forgot to mention, one of the reasons there are many tools that actually do automated captioning and transcription. One of the reasons why we decided to work with the library IT team to help develop this was that we wanted to have a tool that would be non-proprietary, meaning that you don't have to have your content in any particular, you know, hosted in any particular place. You know, for example, you know, Google or YouTube does this. There's various other tools that we use on campus that do it, but you have to have your content within their system, and you don't have control over sort of privacy, or you know, you don't know who has access to the data, either the source data or the transcribed materials. So I think I'm going to end it there. And turn it over to, I believe, Lorraine for the Q&A.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, all our presenters, for your excellent presentations. It's wonderful to learn from around the globe how libraries are expanding, leading in innovative services, and really making a difference. I'm going to return to some of the questions we left last time. I know that Kate has tried to respond to some of them. So I'm going to leave the one that she's already responded to about librarians as methodologists. Kate, another question, and this is one that I had as well, from Thomas Ellenson. How do you decide and control the use of time resources, and do they pay for the service?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So there's a couple of methods that we've employed over the years to make sure we're managing our time and resources on our team efficiently. It's not always easy. But in terms of initial requests for support from our team, we have a request form on our service website, and that request form feeds into a email inbox that all 6 of us librarians on the team respond to in a queue, using a queue system. And this also applies to the question about librarians as methodologists. So because all 6 of us are have the expertise to manage that initial conversation around, okay, what methodology type is most appropriate? Is it a good fit for a scoping review, a systematic review? What's your timeline? What are your plans for publication? All 6 of us, even though we have varied academic background expertise, can guide the conversation regardless of what discipline it's coming in. So we use a queue system to have that initial conversation. If it looks like, you know, it's a student that's not doing a full systematic review, we'll often refer that consult to that area's library liaison instead. And sometimes when that conversation with the research team continues and we've developed a full protocol with that team, which is sort of a document that we use as kind of a gatekeeping document to understand, okay, what would a collaboration at the co-authorship level look like with this team? If that relationship, you know, leads to what looks like a fruitful collaboration for us, and the librarian who's been working with that team has the time and resources to collaborate on that level, then we will join as co-author. We've found, because requests for this kind of work has increased so much, especially in the past year, we've been using that final protocol as sort of a proposal to work with us at that level. So that's worked with us so far, but it certainly is a balance in terms of thinking, you know, what kind of time commitment do we have available as individuals?
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to ask Daniel. Thomas asked, who owns the copyright to the teaching material, the teacher or the institution, and can the teacher edit the presentation which is going to be uploaded?
That's a good question. I actually am not sure who owns the copyright to the material. I guess it may be, there's probably a distinction that needs to be made between the actual video or audio recorded material versus the transcribed or captioned material. I know there are copyright law exceptions that are made for accessibility specifically. It's sort of complicated exactly how that works out, but in terms of who owns the copyright material, I'm not sure. Good question.
Thank you. Kate, here's another one from Jill. Please tell us more about providing the systematic review services outside health sciences disciplines.
Yeah, so I don't think I mentioned this in my presentation, but there are quite a few opportunities for training for librarians in the health sciences and in medicine to learn this process. You know, it's a real stepwise process to perform a systematic review, and that training, you know, has been around for quite a while in medicine, but we're obviously seeing it emerge outside of the health sciences. In our case, that's been in agriculture, life sciences, education, a whole range of fields. So what we are doing through this IMLS grant that was received by University of Minnesota this year that we're collaborating on is hoping to expand those training opportunities for librarians outside of health, really focusing on intricacies that occur, you know, and a big emphasis on matching method type to project. Whereas in health sciences, you're almost, in most cases, are looking at systematic review methodology. You know, is this drug effective for this population? Outside of health, that gets a lot more complex. So it's our hope that we'll be able to really expand training and provide resources for librarians who are maybe solo librarians or, don't have the kind of resources that would make this available to sort of jump right into.
Thank you, Kate. I have a question for my colleagues at UCT, Tamsin and Glynis. I'm sorry if you covered this because I was busy doing something else here hurriedly while you were doing your presentation. So how does the work that you're doing, I'm very, very impressed with the alignment at the national level with NDP 2030, from UCT as a university and then the librarians' expertise in that role. How is this work integrated with researchers on campus? Are you embedded in research teams? Do they come to you as they need it? Tell me a little bit how this is being made operational.
Sure, thanks, Lorraine. And Tamsin, jump in as well at any point. So Lorraine, how we work in libraries, so we are part of faculty teams, but we're also part of multidisciplinary teams. And so, for example, we have a bibliometrics working group that is multidisciplinary, and research landscape analysis is almost a sister service of that. And so that particular service also is multidisciplinary. So it's in the early stages, colleagues, very early stages. And what we have done is we've piloted with, so we work closely with our research office at UCT, which is absolutely amazing. So we have various ways that we penetrate our academy through faculty, through the multidisciplinary teams, through our research office. And then through higher meetings as well that Reggie, etc. will attend. But we have made great progress with the health sciences, particularly the Department of Pathology. And so Professor Ramasar, for example, is becoming one of our champions for this particular service. And through that way, Lorraine, we try and gain some ground with the new service.
Wonderful. Thank you, Glynis. Tamsin, would you like to add anything?
So I think I'm uniquely positioned in that I work specifically with postgraduate students. And as Glynis said, through partnerships with other departments at UCT, we have made inroads into meeting with heads of departments and then meeting with postgraduate students that way. So I think it's been a very exciting time. We can't wait to roll it out eventually once we get back on campus.
Thank you. Wonderful. We have, well, let me check. I think there's one new question that may have arrived. Let me just make sure. Kate, thank you for talking about co-authorship. This is still a challenge for us librarians. What has been your experience with this?
Yeah, it certainly is a challenge. I think, when I started at Cornell working with this service in 2016, one of the first things I realized is how much hinges on those initial conversations with the team. So in the opportunities that I have had to co-author, it's relied a lot on that relationship building aspect of, the first 2 or 3 meetings with the group and asking focused questions on my side, sort of protecting my time and involvement in the project in a sense to make sure, we're balancing that relationship. So that means making sure that the team has enough co-authors aside from myself to carry on the project, because you need at least 2 or more people for a systematic review to keep up that unbiased aspect of it. So making sure they have time, resources, just in those initial conversations, understanding, what's sort of your dynamic with the group. And in those cases, if they are able to put together a protocol that clearly outlines their plan, and from our perspective, does a good job of outlining, following guidelines for systematic reviews or other evidence synthesis methods, then it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to say, okay, I'm going to work with this group from start to finish. But yeah, that's a process we've had to manage and that has evolved.
Thank you, Kate. We have 1 minute left. I don't see any other new questions. If I may, I'd like to ask a last question and then I'll be happy to wrap it up. I think we're right on time, aren't we, Shin? Okay.
Yeah, we are 10,
Oh.
so.
Oh, so should we just cut it down now?
Yeah, yeah. So if any of you audience have questions, please do spend the last few seconds, put in the question and answer Q&A, and we will try to get the answer posted somehow. But Lorraine, I'm afraid we don't have more time. So do you want to wrap it up? Go ahead.
I am on behalf of IFLA ARL Standing Committee. I want to thank all our presenters, first of all, for sharing their experience, their operations, and most of all, thank you for your leadership on your campuses. This is so exciting. I know there's a bright future for librarians and information professionals, whether we call ourselves librarians, methodologists. We are needed, we are necessary, and I cannot be more excited about this time in our profession. And to all of you who signed on, thank you for joining us for whatever time of day or night it is in your particular area. And I wish you all a great holiday season ahead. It's probably a little different, but wishing you all well and a great day or night. Thank you again all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.